Welcome to the Homeschool Together podcast. Where one working mom and a stay-at-home dad help you navigate the nuts and bolts of the growing and dynamic world of homeschooling.
With a focus on early learners, like me.
All the ins and outs of building and maintaining your homeschool life.
Homeschool.
Find out tips and tricks to make things like this easier.
I'm reading.
And ultimately, enjoy educating your kids. And what's that last thing?
Have fun together. Did I do good, Daddy?
Yeah, you did, sweetie. Good job. Hello and welcome to Homeschool Together. Thanks so much for joining us. If you have a chance, head down into the show notes and leave us a review on iTunes. Follow us on social media, and I'll make sure to plug in a link. We were on Instagram Reels Live, super spectacular.
Yeah, that was really fun.
With
Mary Bathrick from Beauty and Ordinary Things. We interviewed her for the show that was on last week.
That's
and
right.
The tables turned, and I got an opportunity to answer some questions from her, and that was really great. We had a lot of fun.
We'll put the link in the show notes, and if you have a chance, you can go watch that. It's it's live, but now it's recorded, and you get to see our silly faces on an iPhone, and
so many bad dad jokes, you guys. So many bad dad jokes.
It was a dad avalanche.
Nobody invited you.
It was a dad avalanche that I invited myself. It was
Yeah.
beautiful. I invited myself. I put on the Netflix, and I made an appearance. But anyway, so today we're going to. We know we have a lot of new listeners. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people are doing homeschooling for the first time this year. I know our podcast has been around for over a year now.
Yep.
And we have a lot of new people, and this is their first year. And what we wanted to do is we've covered a lot of the topics that we're going to talk about today.
We've covered them all in depth. But they were kind of at the beginning of our podcast, and we felt like it would be good to just refresh for those of you that don't want to scroll back 100 episodes.
Yeah, we've been hearing people, we're binge listening your old episodes, and so we're going to put together kind of a walkthrough of starting homeschool. So your first, say 10 steps. And what's important about this episode is that if you have a chance, we'll make sure to include the link to the playlist on our YouTube channel. But Ariel, in her beautiful face, recorded 10 amazing videos walking people through the steps of homeschooling. A lot of the terminology.
Right. There's more detail than there could be in this, just because,
Absolutely.
And those videos are fairly short even still. Yeah. And know that we have an in-depth podcast on every one of these topics that we're going to talk about today.
Exactly.
And we'll link all of those in the show notes too. So if you see a little bit more in depth, you can go to YouTube. And then if you feel like you really need a deep dive, you can go back into our episode archives and click on these links, and you can hear entire episodes about finding curriculum and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So let's walk through it. We're going to go through step by step. Just basically, let's start with the introduction. Where do you start? What is 0 to homeschool?
So, we don't have all the answers, certainly. We haven't been homeschooling forever, and homeschooling journeys are different for every family.
Exactly.
So if you're new and you're still a bit overwhelmed, the one thing we want to say is it's going to be okay.
Yeah, right.
You're going to be okay. Your kids are going to be okay. Take a deep breath.
And you don't need all the answers to start.
You don't need all the answers. We don't have all the answers, and you don't need all the answers.
Well, I don't know about you, but I know I have all the answers.
Oh, you do?
No.
Oh. Do tell.
No.
You'll have to enlighten me sometime. So we just want to make sure that we want this to be a very reassuring episode. We know that it can be overwhelming, especially if you were not expecting to homeschool and you now are.
And you're seeing a lot of, I'm seeing it on my Reddit boards, you're seeing it on your Facebook boards, a lot of the same fears that we see kind of every single year.
Right.
And it's probably a recurring theme, very much like, pregnancy. There's always going to be new moms out there. There's always going to be new homeschoolers, right? And they're always going to have the same questions and the same fears. And so just understand that you don't need to have all the answers. You just get started, I think, is the message.
Right. We're going to try to walk you through some of the basic steps to get you going. Some of this may be new or old. If you're a seasoned homeschooler, maybe some of this is just like comfort food. Sometimes I like to listen to that kind of thing too, and just help recenter me. Sometimes we can get a little bit off track of the goal of why we want to homeschool. So, we're going to try to give you some concise steps, and you can get lots more info in our show notes, but that's what we're going to try to do today.
So the biggest fear, and it's probably the number one question that you get on these forums and on these groups, is the question of, my gosh, can I actually do this? Like, can I homeschool?
Yeah, well, especially, homeschooling is done by lots of different folks, right? So moms, dads, grandparents.
Two working professionals kind of juggling their
It's
schedule.
done by all kinds of different folks, but it's especially done by moms, to be honest. And we moms are very hard on ourselves. We are harder on ourselves than we are on anyone else. And so I see a lot of moms come in and say, I think that homeschooling is right for my family, or I need to homeschool for whatever reason, and I really don't know if I can do this. Am I going to hurt my kids? There's so much mom guilt out there. So I think that the important thing to do is just know that we go and we look on Pinterest and we look at blogs and YouTube and listen to this podcast and think, oh my gosh, I don't know if I could get there. Just remember that every single family that you see that looks like they have all their stuff together, they probably don't have all their stuff together. They're only showing you the highlights.
Yeah.
So,
and social media has a confirmation bias with respect to pretty pictures and pretty things.
Right. Yeah. So one, it's not all as great as they make it look. And secondly, they all started exactly where you're starting now. Yeah. Everyone started not knowing how to homeschool. So we have our fabulous days, we have our down days, everything in between. And we started just where you're starting. So know that when you see that picture of the mom that looks like everything is together, the next day everything could be crazy and chaotic and everybody has a bad day. And she had the same fears you have when you're getting started.
Exactly,
so put yourself in that mind frame. And if you feel like you're stuck there, that you just can't move on, I like to just fake it till you make it. That was something that I often had. I suffered from very bad anxiety when Matthew and I first met. And one of the things several therapists said was just act like you're okay for a little bit and just start going through the motions. And suddenly you'll realize that you're doing it. It's almost like teaching a kid to ride a bike and they're scared to do it, and you get them to start pedaling while you hold on to them. And then eventually you let your hands go and they pedal, and they don't realize that they're pedaling by themselves. So it's one of those things. Fake it till you make it.
Well, especially
really try to believe in yourself. And if you don't believe yet, just fake it until you all of a sudden you're doing it and you do believe that this is possible.
And to be honest, when you first step in and you're playing the educator, it can be terrifying because you don't know what the right thing is. Right. You don't know how to do things correctly. You don't know how to be engaging because you've never done it before. And doing it, just starting it and failing and then coming back and being humble about it and having a good dialogue with your learner, even at a kindergarten level. Just be honest and blunt with them. Say, hey, mommy's or daddy is,
we're still figuring this out.
I'm figuring this thing out, and I'm here to help you, and I'm not going to give up. As long as you don't give up, let's do this together.
Right. I love you so much that I'm doing this for you, and we'll find our way together, even if we stumble and
I think learning to be an educator is a very tough skill that you will figure out in those first few months. And then once you got that down, homeschooling will actually feel very easy.
Well, I think it's interesting how you say, get it down too, which is something that I think...
it's like giving talks. Like when you get in front of somebody and you have to give a lecture to 10 or 15 people, that first time is terrifying. You do it 50 times, it doesn't become as terrifying as it was.
But this is the point that when you talk about when you get it, it's that you're able to do it without fear, but we're still constantly evolving.
Oh yeah, I'm still trying to.
We're always tweaking. We're always trying to find a better way.
I gave you that great analogy the other day of whenever I played basketball, I always told you, every time I leveled up in my capability, whether I'm going from like AAU or I went to middle school, then I was on JV, and then I was on varsity, and then I was playing in rec leagues and stuff. There's the idea of game speed. And the idea of game speed is really just like the first time you step into that game that's at a higher level, the game is moving way faster than you're willing to play. But after like a game or two of that, all of a sudden the game slows down, and you always hear these professional basketball players, these professional athletes, and say, the game slowed down for me. And that didn't mean that the game actually slowed down. It meant that you calmed down.
You're better able to
handle it. And educating, I think, is a lot like that. You need to feel the game speed of education. Doesn't mean that you have to everything is super easy. No. But it just, you take the fear comes down and you're actually able to see more. You're actually able to see and experience and pivot and see what your learner's doing, today, and, what is working today may not work tomorrow. It's just the game speed slows down and you feel more comfortable in that role. I think it's a big thing.
Yeah. I think it's important to know as teachers, when you talk about learning to become an educator, that it can feel very intimidating for us to say, we're going to step into this role, which, a certified teacher has spent so many educational man hours to become a certified teacher. So, and then they have so much experience teaching in the classroom, right? So if I'm looking at putting my daughter in public school with a kindergarten teacher who's been doing it for 20 years and has a full educational background in it, or me, I feel like I don't stack up very well. But one of the things that I want us all to remember is that there's one thing that we have that teacher does not have. And that is the fact that we know our kids better than anyone else on the planet could possibly know our kids, right? We birthed them, we've raised them, we've lived with them and taught them everything. So, to say that we now feel like we're not measuring up against a certified teacher, there are skills that they have that you don't have, and that's true. But this is something that you have that's incredibly important. One of the things about homeschool is it's not just a way of education, it's a way of life. Mm-hmm. And so talking about how well you know your kids and the relationship that you have with your kids means so much. Mm-hmm. When you're working through those issues, as you said, honey, I'm mommy and daddy, we're trying to figure this out. We're going to get there together, and just, will you go with me? And that's all relationship stuff. You build that because you have built relationship capital with your kid. So use that to your advantage. Mm-hmm. So that, you'll know if something's not working. You're going to know a lot faster than a teacher would. In a second, the glazed over look in our daughter's eyes when you know that she's not getting it or not engaged. The fire and excitement look that she has when she's really into something. Mm-hmm. Those are the things that we cue off of and we learn from.
But also we have the freedom to experience those, freedom to recognize those. When you're in a classroom setting, like a lot of these kids are, the teacher is really just talking to sets of eyeballs and they don't have time to go, yeah, Johnny, you're really enjoying this.
I'm sure they would love to dig in with each student. They just don't have that time.
But you do.
That we have. So we have that time that we can give our kids, and it's really important to embrace that. The other thing that we have is we know our kids so well, and we have this mama and daddy instinct. Yeah. And I kind of thought this was hocus pocus before I had kids. And then I developed the mama gut. And right? There's times when what is right for your kids, right for your family. Mm. So if you've decided that your gut tells you that what's happening for your kids educationally is not working and you need to bring them home and you need to do some homeschool and do something different, don't let anybody give you flack for that, right? You're going to have to leave behind the naysayers. That includes grandma and your sister and your best friend and whoever thinks that homeschoolers are weird. Now, luckily, I'm
not saying you never talk to them. You just maybe just don't bring it up to them anymore if they're not supportive.
Don't bring it up with them. Do whatever you feel you want to do. My advice is just don't let them hold you back by their negative opinion of homeschool. Now, if there's one silver lining that we have experienced in the last year and a half, it is that now homeschooling is a lot more normal, quote unquote. Like everybody knows a homeschooler that didn't before. So I think that that's an advantage.
I've heard so many people reference homeschooling, referencing the idea of homeschooling in a positive light. And it's not like obscure homeschool podcasts. Right. I'm talking like major podcasts that I've heard where people have referenced homeschooling, or that we have homeschooled, or that we did kind of a hybrid school this year. And I really, they'll say, I really respect homeschooling. I see it as a good thing. It is an amazing experience. Right. It's an amazing ability to actually take the education upon yourself and share that with your child. I think you're right. The stigma has been just completely ripped off in the last few years.
It
Now,
has.
I'm sure there's going to be a few people who had just crashed and burned, and homeschooling's not right for them. They were just forced into
And
that
it's
situation.
not right for everyone,
Yeah.
but
No,
there are
it's not.
still the old guard. I've seen many Facebook posts in the last few weeks of people getting started saying that their parents,
Yeah.
or in-laws are not supportive of this. I agree with you with the younger families, but definitely, you're going to have somebody, you could have somebody in your family that's totally not on board. The advice that I gave to someone the other day who was worried about this, her mother-in-law was just like very anti, couldn't believe she was going to do it. She was very anti and just couldn't believe they were going to homeschool. You can't be serious. And I told her, when we first started this, actually before we started homeschooling, when we told our parents we were going to homeschool, they were both a little on the fence, but particularly your parents and your mom was very against
it. They just didn't understand it.
And and it mostly came from a place of not understanding, of having a stereotypical view of homeschoolers. And you know what ended up happening? Once we started to homeschool our older daughter and her grandparents got to see what a bright and inquisitive and social girl she was, and got to see the advantages that we were able to give her via homeschooling, that we were able to focus on things that were important to her, all that stuff. That was like the proof was in the pudding. Now, your mom is the one who's telling coworkers, "Oh, you're having problems with your kids in school? You need to homeschool them. You should really think about this, right?"
She's an
now a
evangelist
homeschool evangelist, right? So if you have some family members that are not on board, that are contributing to you feeling guilt about going this direction, just leave them behind. Just don't listen to the criticism. Go the way that you think you need to go for your family, and let it sort itself out, because they'll see the truth. You don't need to argue with them. If homeschooling is right for your kids, the proof will be in the pudding. So just block them all out for the moment. I know that can be really hard when you're getting started, that you worry that what everyone's going to think of you. You do have to realize this is an alternative way of schooling. And there are some people that are always going to be against it because it is not status quo. But that's okay. There's plenty of us here in this community, and this community is continually growing. So,
speaking of community, find a community, find a co-op, find people who are
incredibly
supportive.
important.
Yeah, that is a great place for you to find other, to challenge the socialization question, to find other people like you,
right?
And then not use them, but to lean on them for support,
right? Whether this is an online community or this is an in-person co-op or a couple of friends that you have that you could do a park date with, you need some seasoned homeschoolers, especially at the beginning when you have these questions and you have these fears and doubts. And not that you're not going to go through periods where you have new fears and doubts, because we do, even though we've been homeschooling. It's great to have seasoned homeschoolers to lean on and to ask those questions, because somebody else has been there. They've had that situation, and they're going to be able to give you some good advice. So despite what's happened during the pandemic, we do not homeschool in isolation.
No.
That's not the way that we work. We're incredibly social, and we're very busy. Somebody had asked us earlier, what do we do for connection, social connection for our kids? And then we started listing all of the different things we do. It's like, oh, well, there's preschool, and there's gymnastics, and there's swim class, and there's dance, and then there's play dates with friends. And the other person talking was like, oh yeah, well, there's this class and that class, and we do this. And I was like, our schedules are very full. We are very social. So don't think that homeschool means that you have to be locked at home. You really do need to embrace a community, even if you're not a super extroverted person. It can be hard to put yourself out there, but this is a group of people that you need. You cannot do this by yourself. I fervently believe that this cannot be done in isolation. So find whatever you're comfortable with to get you out of your shell a little bit.
And especially
you gotta find somebody.
If you may not have that draw to join a group or to hang out with other people, you want to make sure you pull yourself out of that shell for your child. That is something that, if you're an introvert, you have to take that one for, the quote unquote, take it for the team, because you do know it is important for your child to have that experience. And so it is important that you engage in that. So we try to answer the "Can I homeschool?" question. The next one,
we have an entire podcast on imposter syndrome. If you want more empowerment, you can go listen to that.
Yeah.
But we'll leave it with this. Just breathe and believe, because you have got this. We have confidence in you.
So the first thing that people do is when they run into homeschooling is the fear that this is so dramatically different. It's not like I'm pulling my kid out of public school and sending them to some private school or some parochial school or, to a charter school or a magnet school or whatever. I'm DIYing my own education. Mm-hmm. And the first thing that people get afraid of is, my gosh, I'm going to have to fill out 50 TPS reports for the local school district. And what are all the rules and states and laws and all that stuff? And, am I even allowed to do this? And we know we're very, very fortunate in this country, in the U.S., that homeschooling is very legal. It's more stringent, the rules and regulations in certain states than others. But it's very legal, and we know in other countries it is illegal. And there's some countries in Europe where you're not allowed to homeschool. We are very fortunate that we're able to do this and able to take our education into our own hands. So key in on that first question that the people are afraid that they always talk about the state rules and the state laws. What do they have to? How can they get around that?
Right. So we all have to be compliant with our state laws to legally homeschool. It's very important that we know and understand those laws, and that we comply by them, so we can keep homeschooling legal.
It doesn't mean you have to become a lawyer. A lot of these rules and regulations are very simple. They're very straightforward.
They're very straightforward, and luckily every state has at least one, if not more, homeschooling associations, which are super helpful for this. There's also the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, which is a national organization here in the United States. So we'll put links in the show notes, but those are two great resources for you to find out.
And the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, I think, aggregates based on the state, and they give you the information and the links to whatever state it is, so you can just find out what state you're in, and then they give you the pointers.
Yeah, it's all broken down for you. So you definitely, it's not that hard to find out, but you do need to understand it. There's a couple things you want to really look for when you're looking at your state laws. The first thing to understand is what the compulsory age in your state is. So that's the age at which you have to declare what you're going to do. Either you're going to homeschool or you're going to send your child to public or private school. So this is if you hear declaration of intent online, that's what that is. That's declaring your intent to homeschool. Now, below your whatever compulsory age, in our state it's 8 years old, you are educationally free. So you can do whatever you want to do without your child being considered truant. So you have to understand what your compulsory age is, and if you haven't hit it yet, great, there's no requirements for you. You can do whatever you want to do. If you have hit it, then you'll have to submit your declaration, or if your kid's been in public school before and you're pulling them out, even if they're under compulsory age, you will have to fill that out, basically de-enrolling them from the school district. So this is one area, like what those forms are, who you send them to, where they're located. This is where your homeschool association is really helpful. And they can help you tell you the correct dates, and usually it's your school superintendent, but they can help you with that paperwork. But that's the first thing to understand. When do you need to tell somebody you're going to homeschool? The next thing to understand is what the qualification is to homeschool. As a parent, do you have to have a college degree, or is there a qualifying course, or do you have to meet with a certified teacher? So what qualifications as an educator do you have to have in your state, and make sure that you meet those? Then you need to understand what your state requires that you teach. Some states have requirements on what subjects are taught. Maybe they have some curriculum requirements. They usually have requirements on time, either days or hours. So you want to understand, when do you have to tell them you're going to homeschool? What qualifications do you have to teach your kid? And what do you have to teach? And how much, right? How long? Those are the biggest questions that you want to ask. And then the final thing to cap it all off is, what do I have to report? Do I have to assess my kid? Do they have to take standardized tests? Do I have to submit a portfolio of their work? That's kind of the way. Those are the four main areas that you want to just focus on. Now, some states require you to do like a pre-written learning plan before school starts. There's some states with odd caveats, but those are the main pieces that are really important to understand, because it's gonna craft. Obviously, you have to meet all your qualifications to get started, and then depending on what they need you to teach, it's going to have a big impact on your year, the curriculum that you choose, etc. So those are the things to really understand about your state laws.
So moving from that, once you understand the laws, and that's kind of like, we look at that as like the architecture of your homeschool environment. The next thing is the meat on the bones, which is, what are you going to teach? In a lot of states, and there's with us, we're kind of a federal system where we have individual states and we have national government. We have different standards at two different levels, and very much some states are supersets of the national standards. Some states don't engage in the national standard. So walk through a little bit of that complication of how do we put the meat on the bones with respect to our homeschooling.
Yeah, so if you're wondering, okay, I have a fourth grader, what am I supposed to teach? Right? So one of the ways you can get some guidance on that, obviously your state tells you what subjects they want you to teach for that grade if they've given you guidance on that. So you've got that to use. But then you have educational standards. So these would be what your child would need to know at the end of that grade level if they were in public school. Now, it's not necessarily saying that you have to teach that, but if you want guidance, this is a good place to look and see, gosh, if they were in fourth grade in public school, what would they need to know? So your state has educational learning standards. These cover all the subjects. Now, for math and English language arts, those standards may or may not be quote unquote Common Core, which is a national standard. So that national standard for math and English language arts has been adopted by almost all states. It's like 41 of 50. So there are some that don't. But if you go to the Department of Education website, you'll be able to go and find your state's educational learning standards by grade and subject, and then you can see for yourself what you would need to know. So we'll put a link in the show notes. If it's something that you're worried about and you really want to make sure that you're staying on level, you maybe want to return to public school next year, it's really important to understand those. If it's something that you're particularly concerned about, there are some curriculum companies that have already they'll coalesce that they're Common Core aligned.
Yeah, that's what they use the term Common Core
so aligned. So then
yeah.
you can you're like, I'm good, right? I can just choose a Common Core aligned curriculum if that's what you want, if you're looking to do that, because maybe you want to return to school and you don't want to have to interpret educational regulations yourself or standards yourself. So, but good to understand if it's something that you want some guidance on.
And, from our standpoint, homeschooling family, we really don't stress about the standards very much. We've read through them a couple times. We understand what they're looking for. We find a lot of our curriculum choices, which will be the next section, get us there, and we don't really worry about it. So unless you have a learner that is a little bit struggling at certain subjects or is challenged in some areas, whether they have some a learning issue or something of that nature, that may matter to you, or if you're trying to keep your kid on quote unquote grade level, which isn't really a real term in the homeschooling world, but we understand that there's a lot of homeschooling public school crossover that term matters. Those are important things to look at, review, and that could also be helpful with your assessment. If you're thinking about having to do assessments, you can use those for that.
Exactly.
Okay, so they've gone out, they've looked at all the standards, they've read Common Core, their eyes have glazed over, they read their state requirements. They know they're not teaching those state requirements in the schools because they don't have enough time for it. Now they've got to go out and say, my goodness, I got to make a curriculum choice. How do I go out and make a curriculum choice?
So I guess what I would say about this is it's you have to decide what you're going to teach and how you're going to teach it. So if you've looked at your standards, or maybe you're not concerned with that, but you just know what you want to teach this year, you need to make a determination about what to teach, and then how. So you can decide whether or not you want to use a curriculum. There are plenty of homeschoolers out there that do not use curriculum, and not just unschoolers. So you'll hear the term unschooling, which is a child-led schooling, and that's based on their interest. And sometimes they leverage curriculum and sometimes they don't. There are plenty of other families, though, that just put together their own unit studies. They teach reading, phonics.
Very eclectic.
They're very eclectic. They say,
together,
this month we're going to study volcanoes, and next month we're going to study birds. And that's what we're going to do as a family. And we're going to pull in some science and some math. And maybe they have a math workbook that they use, and they teach some phonics, and they read and they write, and it's very free form. So don't by any means think that you have to have a curriculum. But I know, especially for people that are getting started, curriculum is a comforting thing. And I feel this way,
yes,
right?
It is.
When if I had been doing this for many years, I could just say, I'm going to wing it and make my own thing. But as a homeschoolers, we've been homeschooling now for, I guess it's almost 3 years. And we feel pretty confident, but I still like the comfort of having a curriculum because that scope and sequence, what you're going to do and when you're going to do it, it's a comforting thing. So, but I just want to caveat this finding curriculum thing with you don't have to get a
doing
curriculum.
the DIY thing, being eclectic, I think puts a lot of pressure on the parent. And we've interviewed a bunch of people, homeschooling journeys, all of our homeschooling journey podcasts, overwhelming majority of them are all eclectic homeschoolers.
Right.
And so that seems like the default selection, but I always feel that
But a lot of them use curriculum as well.
They do, and they use a lot of unit studies to help them along.
Right.
And making the decision on what to do, while you can do it yourself and you can build it and you're fully capable of doing that, you the listener, you're absolutely capable of building your own thing. It just takes time and effort and work. And there's a lot of creators out there who have done the work for you. Yeah. And, as we are secular homeschoolers, we have our own selections, but we understand that people, need what they need, and going out and finding what works for you and your family. I think having that little bit of structure, at least just to start. I'm not saying you have to continue it all the way through. And we know we've interviewed a lot of people that have said, "Oh, I tried this curriculum, it didn't work for us. We chucked it out. We went to another one." We like the idea of starting very simple and very small and very short, because you don't want to go out and spend $1,000 on a big box curriculum and it not be right for your learner, because you're out that money. You're then frustrated and angry because you just spent a ton of money, and that can be very challenging. It can create a very negative homeschooling environment. And then that could also mean that somebody goes out and goes, "Well, I tried that homeschooling thing, did not work."
Well, so it's very hard,
that,
right? Getting a boxed curriculum, there's a comfort in that, in saying that I don't have to think about this. My kid's in 3rd grade. I'm going to go buy the 3rd grade boxed curriculum. And, more power to you if that works for you.
Absolutely.
The thing about it, though, is that, as you said, it's expensive. If you have a charter school that's going to pay for it, go for it. But if you're not and you have to pay out of pocket and you have never homeschooled before, we would recommend starting a little bit easier on yourself. So you can definitely start. There's tons of resources that are very low cost. The other thing about boxed curriculums is that you need to be a little bit cautious about the reading and math age of your child. So if they don't give you the opportunity to adjust those levels, that can be a little bit tough.
Because if your reader's at a 6th grade level in their 4th grade box, they're going to be reading books that are too easy for them, or vice versa. What if you have a learner that's a little bit challenged in certain subjects? You want to be able to have that a la carte for that difficult part.
Right. Math and reading are something that we find that you need more a la carteness, unless your kid's right in line. And what you can do is you can go to some of the curriculum providers for math and for reading and do some assessments and find out if your child's on grade level or not, if you want to do a big box. But otherwise, we would say to start small and affordable and just ease your way into this, so that you don't jump in and spend a ton and then be overwhelmed as well. And add one piece at a time. If you want to get a math curriculum, do that. Start with that, ease into it, and then add another thing. And don't feel like you've got to. If it's gonna stress you, don't feel like you have to do everything on day one, unless there is a state requirement that you got to turn in a learning plan and all of this stuff. Remember, nobody is judging you. Nobody is taking you to task for not, doing 18 things on day one. So, just remember that.
Yeah. And I'm sure if you did a learning plan with your, teacher or the person that you have to report to, and you're like, we started with Math Mammoth and that didn't work for us, we had to go to Singapore Math, I doubt they will have a problem with that. Right. Yeah.
So there are plenty of good programs. One of the things you have to understand first and foremost about them is you need to pick a delivery method. So if you're really looking for a workbook type or, something physical, or you're okay with a digital curriculum that you print out yourself, or you want something online, you want your kids to be able to sit down at a computer and for you to more administrate their learning than teach, you need to make some of those decisions, because that really changes what is available. And then you need to consider your student's learning style. If they're a super hands-on learner or they're very visual, some kids love workbooks. Our daughter actually really likes workbooks, even though I hate workbooks. She really likes them. Some kids love them and others just hate workbooks. So know a bit about your learner and what you think. I mean, it's a bit of a guessing game when you get started, honestly, but And that's the other thing about starting at a better price point. You can get a math curriculum for $40, $50 for a whole year.
Yeah.
You don't need to spend a ton. You can do similar with some different phonics programs and things. And for reading and spelling and things, a lot of things are free. So,
yeah. Well, and also you can leverage the library for your books, especially if you have a library that has a lot of learning books. Like, for example, we just realized we could check out like billions of Bob books from our library. We've had a bunch of Bob books in. So if price is an issue for you, do know that you do not need to spend the bank to do this. You can easily get through an entire curriculum year with math, your reading, and your base level curriculum, whatever, if it's a digital one. You could easily spend $100 or less for your entire homeschooling year and then use the library to get all your books. Right. You do not need to spend $1,000 a year.
Right. That is a total myth. Yeah. Not that if you want to spend the money or, but we just don't want you to feel like you have to.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So we've done a number of curriculum reviews on the show for lots of popular secular curriculum titles. So you can definitely check those out. We'll put a link in the show notes to our reviews. If you want more resources, we like to look at Rainbow Resources. It's a great site. They have a really good catalog, and it has a nice table in it that gives you an idea.
And they have good filters for like secular, religious.
Right, yeah. Neutral. And they also have, they've got a really good, their catalog's really great at telling you how much like teacher time is involved. So this is going to be a very teacher intensive type of curriculum versus, this is more independent based, or, it gives you a good idea. I think it's a great summation. Just know that at Rainbow Resources, you're not going to find any of the digital curriculum. So some of the really popular literature based secular curriculums right now, your Blossom and Root, Torchlight, Build Your Library, those are digital. They're digital PDFs that you would then print. And those are not going to be found in any kind of catalog because it's nothing for them to sell like that. So other things like Playing Preschool, we're big fans of the digital curriculums because they're very affordable. You get an entire digital curriculum for $40 or $50 for the whole year.
Yeah.
And it tells you all the books that you need. And you need to acquire those. But if you have a decent library system, you can really go a long way with that. So take a look, figure out what learning instruction style you want, what content you want it to teach, what delivery method you want, paper or online, and then use some of the resources that we've talked about to narrow it down. And then if you still have further questions and you're not sure if it's right for you, check out some YouTube walkthroughs, listen to reviews by other families, and see if it sounds like the right fit. And if in doubt, just don't blow the budget on one curriculum.
Absolutely. Especially if it's your first year, I really encourage people to, dial it back a little bit. Use one of the, we always like to say, use one of the digital curriculums. And
I don't think you can go wrong with one.
You can't go wrong with them. We've been using them for a couple of years now. We've used pretty much every one of them in multiple levels. And we've been very happy with them. And you really just can't go wrong with them. So the people out there, they're bought, they're sold. They got their curriculum. They're getting they just got signed up for the newsletter and the magazine subscription from Rainbow Resources. They can't wait to buy their million manipulatives.
Oh God, I love Rainbow Resources.
It is
that catalog every year is like Christmas.
Yeah, it
so
is.
It's my Toys R Us catalog. It's my adult Toys R Us catalog.
It's the homeschooling Toys R Us catalog, and they now gotta look in their house, find a place. Where are we going to do the homeschooling?
Right. So, myth. Homeschooling is done in a dedicated homeschool room, or homeschooling is only done at the dining room table. Homeschooling is done everywhere. Homeschooling is done throughout our entire house.
We in some of our interviews, we have heard people do pool school.
Oh, yeah.
We have tried car schooling. We have tried all the schools.
We've camping schooled. Right. So school can take place anywhere, but if you're looking to set up a space, you have to make a couple decisions. Do you want to do a dedicated space? Now, if you're like gung-ho all into homeschooling and you're going to do it for years, then...
You already got the homeschooling forever tattoo right above your homeschooling together tattoo.
So
homeschooling together forever.
So if you know you're in it to win it, then you have extra space. Having a dedicated homeschool room is great with a nice big table and lots of bins to sort out all your different papers and art supplies and shelves for your books and bins for your science gear and all that stuff is great. Definitely do it up, make it fun. Don't make it too cluttered. Sometimes that can be really distracting for learners.
Really having bins for things I have found to be very helpful, especially just, it's going to look beautiful on day 1, and by day 4, it's going to look terrible.
Yeah, you need places to store everything.
But going from day 4 and back to day 5, which is the reset to day 1, having those bins, man, you just toss them into the bins. It feels like, it just feels amazing.
Right. I think the most important things in a good homeschool space, having places to store all of your supplies adequately and to be able to put them away easily.
And effective too, because for me, a lot of the times it's finding the thing I need.
Well, right. You have to label things well, make sure that it makes sense. So having good storage, having a nice large work surface. This is going to be the place where you're going to making massive timelines of history. I mean, have a nice large work surface, and then have something cozy, whether it's a reading corner or some beanbag chairs, something comfy that kids can curl up in and listen to you read a story, or have a cozy space. So if you're going to do a dedicated space, I think those are the most important things. And you don't have to be elaborate with it, but be fun about it. This is a space that you want to be inviting for you and your kids to spend a lot of time in. So it doesn't have to look like a Pottery Barn picture. I've seen some people have these amazing homeschool spaces, but do make it fun. I've seen some that are super over cluttered. So just be a little wary of putting too many posters and things on the wall, because it can be kind of overwhelming for your kiddos. They can get a little bit of sensory overload. If you are not sure if you're going to continue homeschooling, or if you don't have a dedicated space, then pick another area of your house that you're going to primarily homeschool in. And this could be your dining room table, or a little section of your family room, something like that.
And you can have like a little rolling cart.
Right. And this is where we go portable. So you're going to want to have a rolling cart, probably
Homeschool on the go.
Yeah, with all of your different supplies in it, your books and things, maybe a small bookshelf for the books that you're using right that week. And then maybe we have a little portable art caddy that we have. I got it. It's like a little craft bin with handles from Michael's. I think I got it at a garage sale for $1. And we put all of our art stuff in there, put it on our dining room table, and then we can just move it when we're done. So that works really nice. In this situation where you're using a space that's also meant for something else, you have to be a little bit, you still want it to be fun, but I still want to use my dining room too.
Yes.
I still want to eat dinner in my dining room. So
don't blow it. Don't sacrifice a section of your house for homeschooling. Yeah.
If you want to and it makes you happy, then go for it. But don't think that you have to. I think there's plenty of portable setups that work really good. And even though we have a dedicated homeschool space, we still do a lot of it at our own dining room table. Realize that
we do the morning baskets at the dining room table.
Realize that no matter how much you try to contain your homeschool, it does just spread throughout your house.
The funny thing is, you will find that various places in your house take on certain tasks. Like the kitchen table is our morning basket. The couch in the living room is where I do all my reading. Mm-hmm. Upstairs is where we do math and phonics. And so it's like these various areas of the house have their own form and function. It's very funny. Right.
And use your space. Don't feel that you have to totally lose the space of your house completely to homeschooling. Yeah. There's plenty of families that homeschool in their dining room, and you can't tell that that's what they do all the time. And there's others who have dining rooms that are covered in posters and timelines and fun pictures and things. So, do what makes you feel good and makes you happy. But again, just be fun about it. I really encourage people to check out the Facebook group Real Life Homeschool Spaces, because it's a fantastic glimpse into not the photoshopped picture on a blog. It's somebody's real space. And a lot of times it's a space somebody's like, oh, I'm moving into this house and this is the room, or I only have this small dining room. Can people show me pictures of their small spaces? You're going to get tons of real life ideas, and you'll be able to ask questions to people. You can even post a picture of your space and say, what should I do here? So that community is invaluable if you're at all interested or concerned about how to set up your homeschool space.
So you're telling me there's a niche on YouTube for extreme homeschool makeover episodes?
I mean, I'd like to win that.
Where you and I come in with like belts and tool belts and hammers.
Oh God, that'd be terrible.
Guys, we got to knock this wall out. We're doing this is just eggshell. It's eggshell everywhere, Ariel. What are we going to do with this? No? You don't want to become internet famous on that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Famous enough.
Famous, yeah. The next thing that they want to do is get a rhythm and routine. So they got their space, they got their curriculum. They're starting to get library books pouring in by the truckloads.
Get some sturdy bags.
Sturdy bags,
bins or
guys.
something for your
Sturdy
library
bins.
books. Take it from me.
The rhythm and routine, going through the daily motions. What does your week look like? What does your day look like?
Yeah, so this is all about planning. One of the things that new homeschoolers tend to do, this is kind of like anybody that's new to something. I see this a lot, and I've done this before with like new diet programs and things. You're really good at the beginning, and you plan everything to the nth degree. I'm going to eat perfectly, and I'm going to track all my meals. And,
Ariel, this year we're going to raise bees.
And so you do all this effort, and then it invariably it's too much work, and you can't keep it up. And that's what happens when I see people make these crazy detailed plans. If it works for you and that's the way that your mind is happy, then please go forth. But I just would caution you at the beginning not to overschedule yourself. I see some people that make their poster board plan of their day, and it's like done in 5 or 10 minute increments, and it's like, whew,
You're talking about super nanny in your homeschool world.
Yeah, and I see that happen, and I know it's just from parents who want it. It's done out of an overabundance of wanting to make sure that they do everything for their kid, that they have a really productive, full, great day, and that their kids love it. Just be really cautious about doing that. I think
that goes into our comment about easing into things.
Right. I think ease into it. And this is especially true if you're pulling your kids from public school to put them in homeschool. And I guess we should preface this. We're recording this at the beginning of the school year. So we're thinking about people who have had the summer off. And it's a pandemic year. But if you're listening to this at some other time.
Well, and Labor Day and this will actually drop on Labor Day.
Right.
And so for a lot of people, this coming week and the week following are the first weeks of the school year.
Right. So if you're listening to this at some other time than when it releases, and you're just pulling your kids out of a school, please take some time to de-school and just rest and relax before you embark on something else. And you can read a lot about de-schooling if you do some internet searching on that. So before you develop a routine, make sure that everybody is rested and ready to start. And then I would say to start, have just a basic plan. These are the basic movements of what I want to do. If you have a curriculum that's got a scope and sequence and you want to follow it, great. I would not pencil in exactly what you're going to do every single day if it's too much. Rather, maybe we're going to do some of our literature curriculum. We're going to do a math lesson and a reading lesson every day and some outside time. That's great. Just don't be so hyper focused on exactly what day or exactly what time you're going to do everything, because then you end up getting behind and it gets to be stressful for you. And then you're rushing to catch up to your fictional schedule. Yeah. And also don't plan too far out in advance, right? So for us, we know we're doing 3 curriculums right now. We're doing an around the world study, we're doing a math, and we're doing a reading. And I know when I want to finish those. And that's it. And I know the basic movements of every week, the different countries we're going to go to. But I'm not saying on Tuesday we're going to do exactly this thing, because invariably Tuesday is going to be the day when we wake up and need to take the car into the shop. Yeah, exactly. Or something's going to happen, or the kids aren't feeling it.
And the way I handle these things is that you're right. I do have, here's 20 books I have to read over the next 2 weeks. Here's 10 spine books that I have to read a couple pages out of. I have to do 4 math lessons and 3 or 4 reading lessons. Mm-hmm. I will very often, the way I handle it, the way you organize it for me on the Trello board is that here's just a list of things I have to do over the next 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And what I do is I begin to pull things off the stack. I say, well, right now, let's see, it's 10 in the morning. The little one is happily playing with Duplos. I'm going to get the big kid. I'm going to grab 3 or 4, picture books that are part of our curriculum. I'm going to sit down, I'm going to read with her. And I'm going to ask her questions, and we're going to, do a little bit of call and response and understand. And maybe I'll pull the globe down. It's a little bit of a globe study. Where are we? Which country are we in? Things like that. I'll just pull it right off the top of the stack. And great. They're done. I move them to complete. And then I go, okay, let's do the art activity, because the 2-year-old is starting to get a little bored. and I need to get her doing something that's creative. Great. I'm going to pull the art book out, flip to the page. Great. Oh, I have to make crowns this week and castles. Great. This is going to be fantastic. So I'm going to pull my art caddy down, get my materials out, sit at the kitchen table, start doing the work, right? Having that free flow for me is really helpful. But our week is planned. I know what I have to do over the coming week. All of my books are in a crate. All my activities are all sitting here. I can look on my phone and find out all the things I have to accomplish. Going with that type of looser rhythm, at least for me, has worked for me.
It works nice for us. We use Trello. If you heard Matt say, we use Trello. It's an online free project management tool. We like it because we can do as much or as little detail as we want, and it allows us to shift things around. If we didn't finish something this week, we can just move it over to next week, and it's really easy. So,
and something that I always like to do, maybe just another additional point, is I like to front load the week with all of my curriculum stuff, like all my books.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty consistent with my math and reading because it really just falls within the 2-year-old's nap time. So you'll find your rhythm. Maybe you'll have a couple older kids and you don't have a 2-year-old that you got to contend with. Or maybe you have 2 young kids and you got to learn how to contend with those. Maybe you got to do stuff during nap times. You have to find that rhythm to start. And obviously it's going to change over time, but find that starting point and then go ahead and, work the engine and everything. I find loading up all my books early in the week, get all my reading done, Monday, Wednesday, and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And that gives me a lot more creativity, especially towards the end of the week where maybe the kids are getting a little antsy, or maybe we know we have an activity. We're going to go see Grandma and Grandpa this weekend or something like that. I want to make sure I have Friday open, or, I have a play date scheduled for Thursday. I don't want that to impact all my homeschool for the whole day. So I'm going to get all my reading done, and then I'll get my 2 math lessons done, and I'll do my reading lesson in the morning before her friend comes over. Like, those are the great ways to find that rhythm and understand how can I fit my homeschooling into the week, because we all know that it takes a lot less time to homeschool than you would spending time in the public school. And I think that's a really important thing that goes all the way back to the, can I do this? Am I doing enough? Those original questions that we always have, is that you have a lot more freeform control over your education here, and it takes a lot less time than you think. Now, are my kids just sitting out for 6 hours a day twiddling their thumbs? No, I'm trying to keep them active and doing fun things, and we're watching videos and we're learning about certain things.
Right, but we're not hunkered down doing schoolwork. I think it's important.
Yeah, they're not sitting at a desk writing their name 5 million times.
Make the plan that works for you, and then develop a weekly and daily routine that seems to fit with your kids' rhythm cycles. For our kids, they wake up in the morning, they need to eat first thing. If they don't eat, things are crazy. They need to eat right away. Yeah. And then they have a burst of focus time that we use for our morning basket, and then we get them outside because that's what they need. Find your kids' rhythm, and you might just experiment with it a little bit. Try homeschooling at different times of day. See how they respond. Maybe they're great doing, their literature in the morning, but, they have to wait till the afternoon for math because they just can't do it yet. I mean, really, and make sure that you plan active time every day outside for them if you can, weather permitting, because it really helps them to come back and focus when their cup is very full. So experiment with different routines. Find what works for your family. Find a weekly rhythm. Maybe every Friday you go on a field trip, or, find a weekly rhythm that works for you. If you're new to planning and you're not sure how to do a plan of when you should get things done, consider just doing a loop schedule. A loop schedule is nothing more than a stack of everything that you have to do just by curriculum wise, right?
About, yeah.
So you could say, I have math, I have reading, I have science, I have English, whatever. And I'm not going to say when I'm going to do them. I'm just going to go down in that order. And when I get done, I will cycle back to the top. So when I finish English, good, math is next. And you just keep going in a loop until that doesn't work for you anymore, without being so stringent about exactly what day I'm going to do things. You just pick up the thing that comes next. So don't overschedule yourself to start, but do come up with a routine and a rhythm. Kids really thrive on routine. So, if you're loosey-goosey every day and you homeschool at different times every day, that might be disorienting for your kids. Mm-hmm. Try to find something that works with their kind of natural daily rhythms.
Absolutely, I agree. So the last point that we'll hit here is a theme that you've referenced a few times, is just start homeschooling. Ease into it, just start, fake it till you make it. just begin.
It's hard. Sometimes we
Do
analysis paralysis.
Do it.
Well, it's hard. You're like, I want the start to be perfect and I want everything to be great for my kids. And you get so hesitant. If you're nervous about starting, just take the plunge. Just start. If you want to start, if maybe you're busy planning a curriculum for your kids, let's say, and it's taking you some more time to figure out, fine. Take your time to figure that out. Start with a unit study. A unit study is such a great way to start.
I agree.
Just sit your kids down, ask them what they want to learn about, find what that is, go to the library, grab a bunch of books, go find some YouTube videos, do a little bit of hunting online for a science project maybe, or some art that goes with it. Or, if it's nature, you can get outside and look at whatever it is. And then just do that for the week. Take them to the library, get all that stuff. And that gives you time to finish your planning. I know that I wouldn't want to just start. No. When I know I have a curriculum picked out and I'm still getting my ducks in a row. I'm still getting all my books in for it, or I'm still making my plans or whatever it is. But in that time that you're doing that, you're delaying actually starting homeschool. You'll actually feel better if you just start with something and start having some fun with it while you finish making all your plans. So that would be our advice. Pick a unit study and just get going and really focus on the quality over the quantity of what you do with your kids. It can be exciting at first to homeschool. There's so many great resources and you want to do it all and you want to give your kids everything, but focusing on quality is so important. The relationship that you have with your kids, the value and depth of what they learn is so much more important than the breadth of, hitting everything. So there is so much more time. We have so many more hours in the day. You can homeschool year round if you want to, which we do and we love. Yes. Don't feel like you have to cram it all in right now.
Well, and we dip into the weekends as well with a little bit of our morning basket work that we do. So we rarely shut it off. So we just make it part of our life. Kind of like with the diet idea that you said, we're not on a diet. It's a lifestyle change. And it's really more of the lifestyle learning and education as being something that's ever present in our lifestyle, that homeschooling isn't really a thing we do. It's just the way we live.
It is. We don't say, that.
Can we put that on a t-shirt?
Ha! I'd love that.
Yeah.
We don't say that, the kids are studying space. We are studying space as a family because we are all studying.
I swear, Scouts Honor or whatever. I was never in Scouts, but I love learning about all these places we're going. The whole
we've been watching all
thing.
These videos about the different countries.
I feel myself, I have become more enriched just doing this. I can't even imagine what this is doing for my kid.
Yeah, between watching videos about the countries, reading about them, eating the food.
Oh yeah,
discussing it. When we have family TV time at night, we're not watching a sitcom. We're watching travel videos about Iceland. We were looking back at our pictures tonight of where when we visited and talking to our daughter about it.
We're in the north of Europe right now, and we were included Iceland, and we were looking through our Iceland photos with our daughter.
Yeah,
today.
From our trip years back. So, it is a way of life. Know that, when you get started, nothing is going to be perfect. We are constantly changing. Matt and I are talking. It may sound like we're pretty confident in our curriculum choices and where we're going, but we are talking all the time about adjusting.
Yeah, we're micro corrections all the time.
We are working all the time. He's giving me feedback. Well, in the reading, this is how it's going. I'm really thinking we need to tweak this here. I mean, it's something you're constantly working on. So be flexible. Be okay with, your plans maybe needing to change for your kids.
It feels like, in my going back to the sports analogy, it does feel like I'm like the golfer and you're my caddy, right? And I played a lot of golf in high school and college, so. For me, like you're right that if you watch golfers, the caddy is not just a guy who schluffs around the golf clubs. Like it is a cooperation. It's a team. They're working together. They're making micro corrections. They're talking about the elements and this is a little different here. We should go here. Like for example, the other day we were talking about I need to do some more copy work. I need to have things for her to be working on and writing. I need to do more of this, more of that. Or this book is almost done. We just finished the Danielian book. I need some more Danielian handwriting stuff because we just powered through it.
We're working together. And if you're, in our household, Matt's the primary educator. Whoever's a primary educator in your house, know that you're not in this alone. If you want to go over it with your spouse and have he or she help you through areas that are difficult, or you have a best girlfriend who's also homeschooling her kids and you can talk through things with her, just know that these corrections are happening all the time. Just because we're so close to it. We're with our kids all the time. We know, hey, I tried something new today and it was great. We need to get more of that. We need to get more of those types of books. It worked awesome. Or, yeah, this is really falling flat. She's not getting it. I just can see it. We're going to have to pivot. It happens all the time. So be flexible. Know that your plans are just not always gonna come out the way that you expect them to, and don't be hard on yourself for that. The other thing that I think is really helpful is to listen to the stories of others. So we've done a whole series of podcasts with interviews with homeschoolers about their homeschool journeys, which are terrific. And we specifically have a sub-series in there of first-year homeschoolers. And these are people coming off their very first year who can talk about all the trials and tribulations, how they felt before they started, how they feel at the end of their first year. They are a great source of information for new families just getting their feet wet. Highly encourage you to go out and seek those. We'll put it in the show notes. Because, listen to some of those stories.
Yeah, the most important thing when you listen to those first-year homeschoolers is that a lot of those interviews were that kind of that first 6 to 9 to 12 months of the homeschooling year. And so you're going to be hearing a lot of names. You're going to be hearing a lot of things from people where they are just about 180 days ahead of you.
Yeah.
And they're only just 200 days just ahead of where you are right now.
Yeah.
And it brings a lot of that fear and anxiety down, knowing that, hey, this person was never a homeschooler. They never wanted to homeschool. They never even thought they would be homeschooling. And now they're homeschooling forever. Right. And they didn't plan that. And they fell in love with it. They were able to adapt. They were able to find the challenges with their learners and make the best of it. Those interviews are really helpful, I think, for new people, because it's not talking about somebody who's 10-year veteran, talking about 10-year veteran stuff, right? We're talking about somebody who pulled their kids out of school 6 months ago, and now they're homeschooling their kids. Yeah. And I think that is a very valuable thing.
Yeah, I think it's terrific. Listen to stories, get some community. We hope that this was helpful. In the end, just start. We hope that you have a terrific homeschooling journey. We're here for you. We've got the Facebook group. It's a safe place to ask questions, or, if you want to hear podcasts and more information about a specific topic, you can let us know. Please reach out to us. We're happy to help. We really are.
Absolutely. And share the YouTube videos and share this podcast with somebody who maybe you might be commiserating with something, or your sister is also going to be homeschooling and they don't know anything. Feel free to share this with them. Feel free to share those YouTube videos.
Yeah, that's why we made them, is for new people to find them and hopefully get some help getting started.
Yeah,
so
getting started is the big thing.
Help spread the word, please.
Ariel, we survived. Ariel and I are coming off of a grade A flu delivered to us by one of our children.
It wasn't COVID.
It wasn't COVID.
It was
after 2 home COVID tests
and an official one.
Test,
they're all negative.
Definitely all negative.
Man, what a doozy!
And Ariel has been sucking back on the water. I am. My voice is very deep and very sultry right now.
I'm about to.
Yes.
We're about to lose it. But thanks for sticking with us, guys. Yeah. We hope that this is helpful. We hope it helps you guys get off to a good start.
So let's end this the way we always end it, with something that we're into. And it's a very helpful. It's a YouTube classroom teacher extravaganza.
She's so peppy.
She's so peppy.
Well, we've been sick this week, and we have been watching so much of this, and it's made us feel like ultra sick, I guess, because she's just so darn peppy.
So Katie's Classroom is a wonderful little YouTube series. The woman deserves all the millions and millions of views that she gets every video.
She's fantastic.
It's about a 20-minute classroom episode.
It's a preschool class.
It's like a preschool class, and she has a theme.
Best preschool class.
It's really cool preschool class. So she sings, she plays instruments, she takes you on field trips, she does little experiments. There's art, there's songs. It's amazing, and every episode has a theme. So it might be trucks, or it might be dinosaurs, or whatever it might be. That she will go through all these activities, and
she shows you how to do some easy activities. That
and
you
a
can
lot
do
of
at
the
home.
activities are very easy. Like you could just
she was making like
and go do it yourself.
Right, she was making a construction paper dump truck the other day. She used a brad so she could actually move the the truck bed, and then she had a special pocket she taped on the back of it so you could put rocks in it, and when you moved it the rocks fell out. I was like,
it was pretty ingenious.
You're brilliant, Katie.
Good job, Katie.
Our 2.5-year-old absolutely loves Katie's classroom.
We're getting her primed for her preschool class,
but her preschool class, I mean, it will probably fall short. This lady she's so peppy and wonderful.
And another thing that I always like to do is I like to, see people do things, and it's a great way for me to, learn things. I learn by watching, and watching her, how she acts, not the singing. I'm not very good at singing, but it does give me some ideas on what to do with the 2-year-old. So if you're going to watch it and then take them out of that, environment wherever they're watching the video, and then go do that same activity. For those little young learners, those 2-3-year-olds, man, it really sparks an interest with them. They really connect with it.
I got to say, our 5-year-old also enjoys Katie's classroom.
Yes.
I mean, it's a preschool class, but
it's full on legit. She loves it too.
She loves it.
So if you got some young learners and you need to buy 20 minutes, that Katie's classroom,
it's
especially
really
if you're,
fantastic.
especially if you feel like death and you don't want to move, and you're still shaking your fist at the older one who gave it to everybody.
Yeah.
Katie's classroom is the thing to be.
Katie's classroom is one of those things that is like one of those amazing YouTube properties where you're like, I can't believe I get access to this for free.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things like Discovery will come and like give her money or something to make her Katie's classroom, but she will never have as much influence and as many views as she does on her YouTube channel, right? It's like she has already exceeded what like the big TV people would want, which is a really highly, beautifully refined product, perfectly edited, perfectly delivered, and very entertaining, great and colorful. And she's very talented. She's a very good singer. She's very peppy, and she smiles, and she has a great delivery. Some of these preschool classes on channels on YouTube can be kind of like a little cringy at points. There's no cringe with this woman. She's got the full deal,
like genuine and sweet, and I don't mind watching her as an adult either.
It is worth watching.
It's something that you're like, I can't believe I get this for free. Yeah. I should have to pay for this. This is such high quality.
Ariel, we do. We pay for YouTube Premium. What are you talking about?
Well, yeah, but still, just if we didn't, having to watch an ad, it's so professionally done is what I mean. That
it's well done.
You go like, wow, this is free content.
Anyway, so this is a long one. Our voices are shot.
Sorry,
we're going to be
guys.
whispering to each other. Hi, Ariel. Good morning. I love you. Anyway, hope you had a great day. Hope you share this with others, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks so much for joining us today and making us a part of your homeschool journey. Please engage with us on social media. Join our Homeschool Together podcast group on Facebook and find us at Homeschool Together Podcast on Instagram. We'd love to hear your feedback, questions, and recommendations. Until next time.
Happy homeschooling!